The United Nations Human Rights Committee today issued a damning finding on Ireland's abortion laws. The case was taken by Amanda Mellett, who was 21 weeks pregnant when she was told in 2011 that her baby had congenital defects and would die either in the womb or shortly after birth. The UN committee said that because of Ireland's ban on abortions in such circumstances, Mrs. Mellett was forced to choose between carrying her fetus to term, knowing it would not survive, or seeking an abortion abroad. This subjected her to intense physical and mental suffering, which amounted to cruel, inhuman or degrading treatment. The committee said Ireland was obliged to provide adequate compensation and must take steps to prevent similar violations in the future by amending the law, including, if necessary, the Constitution. I'm joined now in the studio by Jerry Edwards of Terminations for Medical Reasons Ireland, and from Belfast by Tracy Harkin of Every Life Counts. Tracy Harkin, if I could go to you first. I know you strongly disagree with what the UN committee said today, and that disagreement is informed by your own experiences.
That's right. I think myself as a mother who's a little daughter who has been diagnosed with a life-limiting disability, I find this report from the United Nations disturbing for a number of reasons. Firstly, I suppose what's deeply distressing for many parents involved in our support network and in other charities that work with families that have lost babies to these conditions is the language that the United Nations has chosen to use. You know, terms like fetal abnormality, incompatible with life. They're such harsh sounding, dehumanising terms. And I think for parents like myself and for the many parents throughout Ireland who have lost their little ones to these conditions, that's not how they see their children at all. And their experiences have not been heard in this report, which is deeply disturbing. Parents have been speaking out, for example, in our organisation Every Life Counts for the last few years, calling for better support and services to be rolled out in maternity hospitals throughout Ireland to help them make the most of the time to parent their child, to love their child, and to hug their child, to smell their child as any mother wants to. And this has been so important, such an important pathway to healing for these mothers. And I think it's alarming that the only option or solution that the United Nations is fixated on is abortion. These are children, human beings with severe disabilities. And there is not an agreed list, neither will be. And I think for us parents, for myself, before I had my little daughter Kathleen Rose, who's now 9 years of age, she's just a wonderful little character. She's brought such joy to my life. Many of our parents didn't have that time with their little ones. They maybe only had minutes or days, but they all said that time was so important to healing. Yes. And there's more and more research coming out to show that, in contrast, abortion increases despair and depression among mothers because they don't have that closure.
Tracy Harkin, sorry to cut across you. You talk about the having services available to allow parents to spend time with their children, however short that time unfortunately may be. And I don't think anybody's suggesting that somebody shouldn't be able to make that choice, but simply that others who feel differently shouldn't be deprived of their choice for what they feel is best for their family.
Well, I think that the main thing here is accurate information, and I think that what's missing from this whole conversation is also to look at what's happened in other countries. What has the impact been of legislation in other countries? You look at the UK, for example, over 90% of children with any disability whatsoever are aborted right up to birth. I mean, most of us have got children with Down syndrome, with spina bifida in our communities. We love them, we fundraise for them. There's a chilling effect to legislation here, which the United Nations has chosen to ignore time and time again. And it's also important to mention that this case was brought forward by the Centre for Reproductive Rights, which are a large, wealthy organisation with many millions at their disposal, and their only focus is worldwide to promote abortion.
Okay,
and so I think there's a huge issue.
Sorry to cut across you, but that doesn't take away from the experience of Mrs. Mellett, which was extremely distressing for her, and that's recognised in the report.
I think we all, as mothers that have heard this diagnosis, it's heartbreaking. We all want a healthy child. We all want a child that is going to be healthy, and it's devastating. I know what that feels like. The parents across Ireland involved in our network know what that feels like. And the question we have to ask ourselves as a country is, how progressive and civilised do we deal with these situations?
Okay.
And abortion is in stark contrast to progression. I mean, it's now 2016. We know through ultrasound scans how, that these babies are alive and kicking at the time of the diagnosis, which is something which the report really failed to mention.
Okay, Jerry Edwards, if I could bring you in, and I know that you and your wife Gay were faced with the same awful choice that faced Amanda Mellett.
We were. I think it's very important, again, in the interest of language, that we are quite clear that there is a difference between disabilities and life-limiting conditions and fatal fetal anomalies, which are conditions which are not capable of sustaining independent life outside the womb. Our son had a condition called severe anencephaly. Most of his skull was missing and his brain was missing. He could not sustain independent life. There was no question whatsoever of him surviving for any length of time, and that was confirmed to us by 5 different medical professionals in 3 hospitals in 2 jurisdictions. My wife would have been forced to continue with that pregnancy for 5 more months in this country, not able to bear the social contact with other people, working with the people that she worked with, being stopped by people in the streets, in the full knowledge that our son would not die, or would not live, I beg your pardon. And this was a situation which was absolute torture for us. And we made a decision which was in our best interest and the best interest of our family. And that decision required us to leave our carers, leave our family, and travel to another state. We did spend time with our son. He was delivered naturally. He had an induced labour. We got to spend time with him, but we would have gotten to spend more time with him had we been able to go through that process here in Ireland. Our family members would have gotten to meet him. We would have had the dignity of having a funeral and a community to stand with us and support us in our loss. Instead, we got a jiffy envelope delivered by a courier a couple of weeks later. That's unacceptable. That doesn't reflect what we believe Ireland as a society believes should be happening to women experiencing these types of tragedy now.
But what about the argument that Tracy has just put forward, that you legislate for this particular circumstance and that leads to a slippery slope, and then children that are diagnosed with having disabilities may be aborted?
It's the responsibility of our legislators to legislate. They also have an obligation to uphold international human rights law. This isn't imposed upon Ireland. This is something that Ireland signed up to. There was discussion earlier on in the programme about upholding the law, and Ireland is one of those countries that has pledged to uphold international human rights law. And we'll find out very soon whether our government is going to honour that commitment which it made and actually take steps to change our legal environment soon. Nobody, absolutely nobody, is talking about abortion being an only solution, but it is a solution for some women in some circumstances, and denying them access to that is not a solution to anybody's complaint or grievance or view.
As you said, in your case, there was no prospect of your baby Joshua surviving, but sometimes doctors make mistakes, that medical projections can actually be wrong, and babies have been born after doctors have told parents that they can't be.
Babies have been born. Those incidents are very, very rare. The doctors do give us full information based on their experience of a wide range of samples. What is the median survival rate? What is the longest survival rates that are recorded? And based on their own individual scans, on amniocentesis, on CVS screening, which have all have very, very high accuracy rates, they give us what they feel is the best prognosis in our circumstance. And in every other area of medicine, we trust doctors to give us advice. We get second opinions. We avail of the best scans, the best investigative technologies that are available, and we make decisions on that basis. I think everybody should know the full facts about their situation, and they should be able to make their choices for what's best for them and their families in those circumstances, and they should not be kicked out of their country and made to feel like criminals for doing so.
What about the fact that some people, I heard Archbishop Abel Martin earlier objecting to the fact that the UN was telling us what to do?
It's a bit ironic, to be perfectly honest, that he would take that view. The UN isn't telling us what to do. We're members of the UN. We've signed up to the Covenant for Civil and Political Rights. We have signed up to the optional protocol to accept the decisions of the committees which have been set up by countries to monitor adherence to human rights law. The UN isn't an outside body. We're part of the UN. They're not telling us what to do. They've made a finding in the case of Amanda's case that she was abused and she was treated to cruelty, inhuman and degrading treatment.
Okay. Tracy Harkin, if I could go back to you very briefly, it's pretty clear from the programme for government, from the government statement today, that there is perhaps a suggestion that the government might move on this particular specific issue. Do you feel you're on the wrong side of history on this one?
Not at all. I believe that that a truly progressive and civilised society will treat all of its citizens equally, and that includes mothers, fathers and their babies. And even in these very difficult situations, it's a true test of the humanity of any culture, how we, the love and the care and the protection and the right to life that we give all of our human beings. Abortion is a tragedy. Abortion is, you're talking about late-term abortions, and you're talking about, I just think it's not the 1960s. We should learn from what's happening in other countries. And I just believe we need to throw our arms around all parents and give them the love and the support and their babies the protection that they deserve as individuals too.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us from Belfast.